The subject, common defense. Well, actually, the subject is national defense and the defense budget. As you know, the Super Committee has been tasked to find savings, and one of those potential savings is in the national defense, the defense budget. And there's a lot of concern that this is going to be damaging to, well, not only the Defense Department and our various services, but also our preparation and ability to respond worldwide. As a result, there's an organization called the Coalition for Common Defense. Found out about it in an article appearing in the Daily Caller early this morning, and have put out a call to members of that organization. And we have joining us today Joel Arends. He is chairman and founder of Veterans for a Strong America. And just to make a little background on our guest, he volunteered to serve in Iraq with the Army's 1st Cavalry Division. And in 2003, Captain Arends served as an infantry platoon leader in Baghdad during the first free and fair election in 50 years. And, of course, we all remember those purple thumbs. With that, it's a pleasure to... Oh, and by the way, just want to make mention of the fact that he earned the Combat Infantryman's Badge and Bronze Star Medal for his time in Iraq. With that, it's a pleasure to welcome Joel Arends, chairman and founder of Veterans for a Strong America. Joel, thank you for taking the time to be with us, sir.
Thanks for having me on today. Appreciate it.
Well, this is an important story, and one that I was very intrigued about, the Coalition for Common Defense. Your organization, along with others, were meeting in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Am I correct on that?
We did. We had the pleasure to be with members of Congress, members of the Armed Services Committee. We had a panel discussion on the issues, and what we talked about is that current law right now, as a result of the debt limit deal, says that the Department of Defense will face $1.2 trillion. That is trillion with a T, dollars in cuts. If the Super Committee, this gang of 12, 6 senators, 6 congressmen from both sides of the aisle, if they fail to come to an agreement on the budget, the Department of Defense and our nation's military will face $1.2 trillion in cuts over the next 10 years. Now, those kind of cuts would be devastating to the military. They'd be devastating especially to the Army and Marine Corps, because right now the military already has a mandate. The current law says that we have to cut $489 billion from the defense budget by this year. And so we've already cut the defense budget down to the bone. The next question is, are we going to cut into the bone? Are we going to start cutting capabilities?
You know, it is an issue that concerns not only the subject of national defense, but also the subject of the economy and the impact that this is going to potentially could have on the economy. But before we even go into that, let's just address this issue of what does $500 billion do? And that's this year, am I correct? $500 billion cut in this coming fiscal year?
There's going to be $489 billion in cuts phased in over the next 10 years. But if the Super Committee fails to come to an agreement, the current law says we will have to reduce the budget by another $1.2 trillion phased in over 10 years. And what's important to focus on is what the ramifications are going to be, because if we have to make those budget cuts, and we don't see Congress coming to an agreement. They can't even agree what day of the week it is right now. And so what's going to happen is the Army and Marine Corps, especially the Marine Corps, there's 202,000 Marines right now in boots.
Right.
If that budget situation happens, 65,000 Marines will be separated from the force. We will go down to a Marine Corps that is not only below 9/11 levels, it will be at the same level it was just after the Marine Corps left Korea in the late 1950s.
That's an astounding vision, let alone number. Joel Arends, our guest, and we'll give him an opportunity also to explain his organization, Veterans for a Strong America. We're talking about the Coalition for Common Defense. Joel, I'm kind of sputtering here. the kind of impact that could have in light of the fact that there's new concerns about activities in the Pacific, let alone the unresolved concerns in the Middle East and other areas around the world. Is there would we still be able to respond? What is the opinion of members of the Department of Defense, and particularly Pentagon?
Well, what's encouraging is that the Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, recognizes that these kind of cuts are unacceptable. In fact, what he has said is that if this budget situation occurs, it is similar to you shooting yourself in the head. This budget situation is a game changer. Not only do we lose 60,000 Marines out of the force, by the way, that's 25% of the Marine Corps we would lose. The Army will lose 150,000 people out of its force. The Marine Corps is looking at, currently has 29 amphibious ships in its inventory. We're going to lose 6 of those. The Navy is going to have to mothball 2 carrier battle groups. Not just 2 carriers, that's 2 carrier battle groups as a result of the budget. And the other thing with the Marine Corps is the reset of all of this worn-out equipment that the Corps has suffered as a result of fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan for the last 10 years. All of the investment in building new equipment is going to be postponed indefinitely. It is going to have a staggering impact. And what's so frightening about this, though, is that this budget has been proposed by President Obama and some in Congress. And so what we're doing is we are working with members of Congress to push back. We are working with members of the Super Committee to ensure that they understand the importance and what the consequences are.
I'm intrigued that you have seen this so quickly. Our guest, Joel Arends, and I want to go into some details here in a moment with his organization, Veterans for a Strong America. But again, we're talking about Coalition for Common Defense. Joel, I do want to mention also the impact on the civilian enterprise. And of course, in one particular case in our area, we have FRC East, Fleet Readiness Center, East Coast. And the fact that facility, by its little lonesome, is the single largest provides the single largest payroll of the entire eastern region of North Carolina between Virginia and South Carolina. I mean, and that's the facilities at Cherry Point, Havelock, competing with such small cities as Greenville, Wilmington, Wilson, and other areas, Kinston and New Bern, and our communities, Elizabeth City. My point being that it's interesting that Havelock has such a significant impact and actually employs so many people. With that said, looking at this program yesterday, what was how did this come about so quickly? Is this something that people have been working on for a while, or is this something that was seen as a crisis and needed to be responded to quickly?
Well, I think it's both. These numbers, these $1.2 trillion in cuts, are as a result of the debt limit deal that President Obama and the Congress came to an agreement several months ago. And just like everything in government, it's not a crisis until we're on the precipice. Mm-hmm. But now, by November 23rd, the Super Committee has to come to an agreement. They have to bring a bill to the Congress by December 23rd. Otherwise, these cuts will start on January 12th. You know, we will face some part of that $600 billion or $1.2 trillion total in reductions if Congress doesn't come to an agreement with the Senate, with the President. You were talking about the economy and the importance this has, especially in the Camp Lejeune, Cherry Point area. You know, the Secretary of Defense has said that 1 million civilian jobs will be lost as a result of reductions in the force and no longer investing in, our nation's security and safety. And what that's going to do, it's going to be incredibly destructive to local economies. It's going to be incredibly destructive to the morale and to jobs. In fact, it's been estimated that it could, these budget cuts could add up to 1% onto our nation's unemployment. We could skyrocket from 9.1 to 10.1% unemployment nationally as a result of this.
Well, associated with that, and that's the civilian jobs that currently exist. What about the jobs that are not waiting for all those uniformed personnel who will be released from their various services? I mean, where do they go? What do they do?
Well, right now it's a good question where they're going, because veterans unemployment right now, especially for young Iraq and Afghan vets, these young men and women are looking at unemployment rates twice that of their civilian counterparts. And I think the last numbers I've seen is that under this plan, we could see young Iraq and Afghan vets coming out of the service having unemployment rates of 21%, and we could see disabled vets with unemployment rates that skyrocket up to 41%.